This video is brought to you by the charity Help 99. More on them at the end of the video. This is a channel that says nice things about the Netherlands from time to time. Okay, maybe most of the time. But to be fair, it's not just me. A lot of urbanist YouTube likes to discuss how it's such a great country, which can give the Dutchies who are listening a much needed ego boost. But while all of this positivity is great, it can give off the impression that the Netherlands is perfect, which, to be perfectly blunt with you all, it's not.
What people call love is just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed.
To give a more balanced view of the country I live in, I'm going to try my hand at the cherished Dutch tradition of complaining.
But I didn't make any mistakes. Only you played poorly.
And pick on the city of Nijmegen. To anyone from there who may be listening, I'm sorry. And to everyone else, let's talk about something in the Netherlands that isn't perfect for once. So, what's the deal here? What did the city of Nijmegen do to motivate me to produce a whole video bashing on it? Well, as a transportation engineer, my dislike stems from what, at least in this YouTuber's opinion, is the most self-sabotaging piece of road infrastructure in the country. If you live in the area, you probably already know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then welcome to the one, the only, Keizer Kareplein. This roundabout, actually I can't even call it that, this traffic rotary impressively manages to break nearly every rule of Dutch design. And an investigation by the NOS, the Nederlandse Omroepstichting, revealed that the Keizer Kareplein is the most dangerous piece of infrastructure in the country, with an astounding 83 crashes and 3 deaths recorded between 2014 and 2016. That means that a third of Nijmegen's crashes and traffic deaths come from this one location. So, if I haven't lost half of my Dutch subscribers by now, we should ask, how is this monstrosity so uniquely un-Dutch? How did such a thing come to be in the Netherlands? And most importantly, is there a solution for it? I first discovered the Keizer Karelplein on accident. 2 years ago, I was working for a company in Den Bosch and was looking to live closer to my work. Nijmegen is around 30 minutes away by train, so I jumped over on a weekend to see if it would be a good fit for me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something felt off the moment I departed Nijmegen Central Station. If your day job is designing streets and roads in urban environments like mine, it can make you perceive your surroundings differently than the average person. Think of it like being orange-pilled, but on a mega dosage. Working every day with things like sidewalk widths and street lighting can give you a really keen eye for design and help you make quick and profound insights about a city you're visiting for the first time. It's a nifty skill to have and a giant pain in the ass, since once you develop this vision, you can't really turn it off, even if you're just trying to enjoy your vacation. And this off sensation came from all the car traffic I encountered when I left the train station. Normally, road planning in the Netherlands pushes car traffic away from dense urban areas, so they don't clash with residential activities. But here I was in the middle of Nijmegen, by the main train station, and there was a busy 2x2 road right next to me. And as I kept walking towards the center, I kept running into the types of big intersections that you'd only expect to see on the outskirts of big cities like Amsterdam. After an hour of walking, Nijmegen felt to me less like a city and more like a series of urban islands that were split up by busy motorways. In the ancient world, all roads led to Rome, but in Nijmegen, all busy roads lead to the Keizer Kareplein. So when I inevitably found the stadium-sized traffic rotary and had the joy of walking around the whole thing, the puzzle that was Nijmegen's traffic situation started to make sense to me. Okay, so when I was ranting to you about the Keizer Kareplein, I was being slightly misleading. Its size, location, and existence aren't so much the issue. There's been many proposals to fix the traffic rotary by tweaking the design, but they always come up short because they don't address its fundamental flaw, which is how the Keizer Karelplein is connected to the rest of Nijmegen's road system. If it was just floating around in Zeeland somewhere by itself, its only offense would be being a pretty out-of-place tourist attraction. The Keizer Karelplein is smack dab in the center of Nijmegen. It's 300 meters away from the central train station and just 250 meters away from the edge of the old medieval town. But despite its location, it has no less than 6 travel services feeding into it, of which 3 have heavy traffic functions. Graafseweg, with 4 lanes approaching from the southwest, Oranjesingel, which connects the regional highway with another 4 lanes, which, as its name implies, runs underneath the train station in a tunnel as a 4-lane road and wraps around via the Nassau-Singel. When you zoom out on Google Earth, it's easy to see how these roads cut across Nijmegen and all converge on the Keizer Karelplein. If you're looking at this and think that this creates one gigantic magnet for traffic, then you'd be right. 1, because the connecting roads themselves have high traffic volumes, and 2, because of travel patterns. If somebody wanted to drive from point A to point B, they can't cross the 4-lane Graafseweg, so instead, the driver is forced to turn and drive into the center and then use the Keizer Karelplein to rotate. And this becomes a default route for everyone, unless they deliberately choose a detour that takes significantly longer. So, rather than having a traffic scheme that pushes the through traffic to ring roads on the outskirts, like Dutch cities like Groningen, the Keizer Karelplein does the opposite, sucking all traffic into the city center and then spraying it everywhere. The city planning equivalent of tossing shit into the fan, if you will. This setup has consequences that go beyond Stefan complaining about having to stop at traffic lights during his walk. No transportation engineer, no matter how good he or she is going to be able to completely compensate for the damage caused by a terrible road network. Building bike paths and widening sidewalks is great, but if the road network is dramatically increasing the presence of cars, which is what creates the need for so much separation, then it's a bit like pouring water into a bathtub with a big hole in the bottom. You're never going to be able to match the same results that you'd get if you could just restrict car traffic from the very beginning. And that's why the ASVV, the Dutch Design Guidance for Urban Roads, lists routing roads with a heavy traffic function around dense areas as its #1 principle of safety. It seems impossible that such a thing can exist in a country that is praised so often for its great design. Which begs the question, why does the Keizer Karelplein exist? Were the traffic engineers just drunk by the time they got to Nijmegen? Well, unfortunately, we don't get to blame this one on Heineke, but a good place to start is with the park at the Keizer Karelplein's center. It kinda looks hilariously out of place. The manicured sidewalks dump pedestrians right into 3 lanes of traffic. What dystopian landscape architect thought that this location, surrounded by noise and car exhaust, would be where people wanted to spend a nice afternoon for a picnic, assuming they even managed to make it in the first place? But the truth is actually the opposite. Some silly traffic engineers decided to add 3 car lanes around a park that was at the center of a city plaza, and then they left the park in the center because why not? In the past, the Keizer Karelplein wasn't a car sewer, but it was a source of pride for the oldest city in the Netherlands, and we don't need to look too far back in Nijmegen's history to see how. Keizer Karelplein translated means the Plaza of Emperor Charlemagne, named after the Carolingian emperor of the 800s AD. In the 1870s, Nijmegen was growing, and it was decided to demolish the medieval fortifications so the city could expand outwards. The medieval city's streets were too narrow to accommodate the growing number of pedestrians, trams, and carriages, so grand boulevards like those conceived in Paris and Brussels were proposed. And at the meeting point of those boulevards, A grand 150-meter ovular plaza would be constructed. This plaza would be called the Keizer Karelplein, and it was finished in 1880. And in the decades following, it dually served as a social space for gatherings and for the movement of people and goods. This duality was possible due to the nature of transportation then. At this time in history, cars were expensive and impractical luxury items for rich people to waste money on. Kinda like the 1880s equivalent of the lifted Ram truck in the suburbs. So everything moved at the speed of horse and buggy, around 20 kilometers an hour. A street could have a tram line and some carriage traffic, but still be a relatively good place for children to play or for a leisurely stroll. One of the best examples of this duality was the development of the boulevards. They offered a wide and convenient alternative to the cramped medieval streets for slow traffic, but a park-like space with greenery that could beautify a city. But this dynamic would change with the mass adoption of cars. At first, they were just the next thing introduced into the mixing dynamic that had always existed in cities all around the world. But over time, the speeds and intensities of car traffic grew, which broke the duality of transportation and social space of the public realm. So, as the increasing number of cars hogged the streets and injured anyone else attempting to use them, the vast majority of public space in cities were converted to only serve transportation, and social functions were shifted to smaller reservations. Walking would be moved to the sidewalk, playing would be moved to the playground, and the plaza that used to be for everyone became a giant rotary with only the park in the middle left as some pretty landscaping that could be enjoyed from a distance. And that's how a city like Nijmegen ended up with a traffic dynamic that no sane traffic engineer would propose if he or she was building a network from scratch. If you've stuck around this long to hear about a solution, I have good and bad news for you. The good news is that the solution itself is very simple, but the bad news is that implementing it would be very difficult. The Keizer Karelplein being connected to the road network and sucking all traffic to the center is what the problem is. So the solution is closing it off to all through traffic. Let the Keizer Karelplein, the plaza of Emperor Charlemagne, go back to being a plaza. Easy enough, right? Well, it is until you have to redo Nijmegen's whole road system so car traffic can detour around it. It's the kind of solution that is every bit as political as it is technical. But until leadership has the courage to make that decision, the Keizer Karelplein will continue to have the unsavory honor of being the most dangerous traffic point in the Netherlands. The story of Nijmegen and the Keizer Karelplein, in a way, is the same story of almost all European cities. Public spaces that were built for slow traffic of the late 19th century were converted for automobile traffic of the 20th century. And the short-sighted decision to convert the space for something that it was never intended for led to long-term consequences that we are still dealing with in the 21st century. Help 99 is a charity based in Estonia that is dedicated to providing direct aid to the military units in Ukraine ever since the invasion began in 2022. When 2024 started, I resolved that I wanted to do more to help Ukraine. So I volunteered in February as a driver in the monthly supply convoy, where we drove 35 hours from Tallinn to Kiev and spent 2 nights in the capital. That was followed by successfully raising 7,500 euros towards the purchase of a truck being sent to Ukraine this May. And now with your help, we can do even more. Build the Lanes is partnering with Help 99 to fully fund a pickup truck for the reconnaissance unit of the 67th Mechanized Brigade. The truck will get upgraded camouflage, night vision, snow tires, and a drone jammer, and which will all be delivered personally by me to Kiev when it's ready. If you'd like to help, use the link listed below or in the video description to donate. Anyone who contributes over 100 euros will receive a limited edition Build the Lanes patch, our first ever merch offer. All patches are made in Ukraine and will only be produced once, so hurry and get one today before time runs out. Thank you for your help, and Slava Ukraini!